Join with computer audio. There we go. So I'm going to start sharing the screen because it's the Crystal Yolk Temple. And we're going to go through almost the same crystals, but with 4 new ones added. And the 4 new ones are going to go in the world's great and good, and then higher, which is dragons and Jedi. And I'm going to show you the list. So let's get that going. Share screen. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about each of these crystals and like what they actually helped with over the course of the last 6 months. I was looking through all the crystals that would specifically vibe to help clear out knife rape, and that would counteract the vibration in the most transformative way and powerful way. And these were the ones that I came across very clearly that would help. Now, if you look at, so this is a specific type of moss agate. This is Indonesian moss agate. It's the moss agate from Indonesia instead of just the regular moss agate you will find. And these are world creating. If you look at each stone, you just see the ether and you see the sky and you see the land. And it's the same story through each of the stones. And this stone was one of the most healing vibrations for really beginning to clean out the Clippeth and energy. Now, when I was under the severe astral attacks, I was kind of guided to go through and bring these cloudy, foggy forest images and throw them online because the grid would begin to soften out the astral attacks. It was kind of a soft, indirect way to begin to create new growth and healing transformation. So this moss agate, these are some of the most beautiful stones on the planet. There's worlds within worlds, and you see the different layers within Earth. And this is one of my favorite ones because you get the earth crust and then you get the mantle and then all the different layers of the underworld. And I have there's this painting of Toothless flying off into the distance, and it's with the same colors. And it just reminds me of all of that imagery. And so you have the trees and the forest and you have the sky. There was one more that's really powerful and important to show, but from a distance this looks like Little Red Riding Hood about to walk through the forest. And so we have the Little Red Riding Hood stories and archetypes to come and illustrate the journeys of Geburah, because it's about the little innocent gnome girl or the little innocent girl that's getting taught by the big bad wolf about everything evil in life, so that she can begin to defend herself. And that's the same archetype as V for Vendetta. There are a couple more of these moss agate stones that I wish to bring up. This one, you get the nice green cliffs. Here's like the beach. Oh, there's a square one with the sky, clouds. There's just one after the next that really kind of take your breath away because they look like paintings and they're perfectly centered. This is the other. There's the layers of the fog upon fog upon fog. So I would do a lot of these layers. Moss agate in the world God, and moss agate in another layer of the underworld, and another layer of the underworld, and another layer, because they are underworld creating. So they will help to replicate the similar patterns that you're finding even on the specific crystal. Now this one's interesting because it looks like coral. So then you've got the healthy ocean underworld. So there is a very specific magic that is coming with these crystals. And this will be our last one. And then we'll end on here. Somebody saying, please don't, please end on like, please end on a happier one. We'll end this one or this one. This is probably one of my favorites. Okay. You got the red forest leaves and the regular forest, and you got the bridge, and you've got the cloud and the fog coming in. All right, so that's the moss agate. Moss agate is really good for creating new growth, new healing growth. Con I shall cite. This is really clear. This came through with a lot of the Yoda Balls magic. And it was originally ascribed to the world of Jedi up in the higher planes because it works, but we're also at like, can I have it on the lower one? The lower worlds? Because we need to see from the lower worlds. So this is Yoda, these are Yoda balls that I wouldn't know how to pronounce this when I would read it, and I would just call it concite. It's the same thing because I'm seeing the cons of the planet, of myself, of any of the traps that are set up from other dimensions or energies or people or other entities, etc. So really being able to see it, but also help clean it. I really prefer to see it in the balls format because it reminds me of the Yoda balls specifically, and having Yoda guide us through with these new protections. It generally manifests in a spherical form, even there or here, but many times you'll see it in obtuse or abstract. So even miniature. Okay, so this is here. There we go. Yoda ball. We're gonna leave it on this note. And we're gonna scroll upward. Now the next crystal yolk, the next new crystal yolk is the Mexican fire agate. And it has more of the same iota balls, but this is a purification. This is to bring in the dragon fire. So it's really to open up. There's a lot of the rainbow bridge energy. It's really the cobra acid beginning to open up the spaces to bring in purification. Very good for cleaning out the underworld. With fire agate, when you would pour it on the clippeth in the crystal yolk, it wouldn't turn into something demonic or like knife rape or anything. Like it would very much just eat away at demons and disgusting energy, blades, traps. Okay, so we're gonna put these last two up here. I don't really know where to put the pedo sky stone. There's a really deep spiritual teaching about this. And it's kind of like the higher the tree you climb. Pedophilia in the spiritual dimensions and the spiritual world is really insane. I'm gonna talk about this as unification consciousness and like sensating and all of these other gross things that as you develop as a master are actually quite inappropriate, but we don't really have the spiritual maturity to develop a transfer from a Hode Muggle existence into a mature spiritual existence. Usually we just let go, let God, everything is fine in the spiritual world. And that's the general status. We're told to drop our guard and to drop our boundaries around spiritual people because they're of service or they're of God. And that's actually quite a Slytherin agenda. So when we hit Gryffindor, I'm gonna go into the full story now. So when we hit Gryffindor, you set up these really healthy boundary systems, and you know that astral imprint of sexual energy is totally inappropriate. So you don't bind to somebody in the astral planes at all. And so there's the general sense of, like, if you look at, this is like this soul, this is a soul, this is a, and we have all these like ivory wisdom boundaries between us, but we all are still unified consciousness. And this prevents this idea of like, yeah, it's totally fine if we have sex with our brother or sister, or it's totally fine if we're like into our children because we're all spiritual and we're all one. Or it's totally fine if I sensate into my student and make them channel me all day long because she is me and I am allowed to do whatever I want. So that's very incestuous. That's how Starfuentes behaves. Like she's allowed. She's like, my body is her body. And I have zero right to even like say, no fucking way, I'll kill you if you come near me. And then they go, oh, I'm allowed to control your brain. I'm allowed to control your energy. I'm allowed to send you this, and I'm allowed to send you this, and I'm allowed to send you this and this because it's all mine. And it's very domineering. And it's very psycho guru delusions. And it's people that have been brought up to think that there's some kind of divine conduit, even though they're just a fucking Slytherin. And so they have zero boundaries. And so the Petoskey stone in the dragons, like the dragons are like, ew, I don't like to combine my energy with another dragon. We're not the same fucking dragon. So they are like, we are a team and we are whole. We are whole in ourselves, but we also have our own sense of self. And we have a sense of respect around each other's boundaries. And we don't go, yeah, it's like, yeah, I like to get off on masturbating to my child or to my child's lover because I'm all up in the crazy spiritual world. So, and that's why we like to like pedo sky, pedophilia sky, like, no, the higher you go, the more boundaries there actually are, because more Geburah. Like, no, like, you have to get all your A&R marks, and then by the time you get to aura level, you're 10 times A&R marks, and it's less astral incestuous. The other problem, and here's the other issue. A lot of times, parents and children will reincarnate with each other through, like, oh, I had a lifetime where you were my lover. So there's still this weird sexual bind to that person or that entity from a past life. So it's an imprint in the astral energy field. It needs to get cleaned out forever because it's totally inappropriate. So it, like, let's say Jesus was my lover 1,000 lifetimes ago, and then I'm gonna have him as my kid, but then there's still this astral imprint of us being romantic with each other or intimate. That's disgusting. So all of that is like crazy, and it's psychodrama, and it needs to be cleaned out of the DNA, out of the astral planes, out of the whole cyclical linear time spectrum, so that it's, yeah, maybe once upon a time we had that lifetime, but there's no charge around it because it's cleaned. And then you can, it's dragon fired. Because there's no cords and there's no more extra fuel to that fire. And that's the main issue going into from a non-spiritual planet into a spiritual planet, because people don't know how to, one, clean up that energy, but also like how am I supposed to even think about this? Or what are all of these crazy thoughts about? And like, why am I like, why like, why is my connection, my energy attracted to that, even though I know it's wrong? And then how do I sever those cords? Because and this is the thing about Geburah, you don't go what you're initially attracted to, because like, we're not lustful creatures in Geburah. You go, oh, that's an inappropriate energy, and I'm going to clean it, because that feeling or that lusty thing is it's a lower self. It's not like an enlightened self. Well, I'll tell you that. If it was an enlightened self, it would be like Protego Totalum, and then you, like, a giant dragon would appear, okay? So like, it's definitely not that kind of a self. God. And then we have the moss agate again. Okay, so we're gonna have the moss agate twice. We're gonna have it in the underworld, and then we're gonna do one more extra coat on it. It will be fun somebody's asking me, can we make sure that we have the coral one for the ocean at the end? Yes, we'll make sure that that one's envisioned. So we're feeding the ocean with the beautiful corals at the very end. Okay, so we're gonna start with the moss agate, and then we're gonna end with the moss agate. So we're gonna begin to layer our walls and our tower with the moss agate. Somebody's going, I'm really surprised we didn't find the brick, like a solid brick crystal. The Vonadonite, or that's the closest one I have in my brain. Now this moss agate feels really good. It's a hearty but soft, organic love vibration. Now making sure it's through your entire home yolk and not just your tower. And then the city yolk. When you start to see it go through the city yolk, you see the people just drowned in these new vibrations. And the moss agate actually creates a healthy, it's a healthy Malkuth energy. It's also, it brings a sense of stability and solidness. It dissipates the anger because you kind of ground. Taking a walk in a foggy forest. Sense of quiet beauty. And then the Hufflepuff yolk. And if you want to put the coral one in the ocean, that coral color version. if you have ocean pieces to your Hufflepuff yolk. And then we're going to go ahead and then do the world shell. You're going to start to feel the rest of the sexual violence that still needs to get cleaned off the planet through the underworld. And you do the world shell. And then go ahead and put the coral and the ocean ones in part of the world shell. The coral at where the Great Barrier Reef is, or any of the other dead reefs along the South American coastline too. And this is setting your intention for rebuilding them. People are using me setting this grid as an invitation to continue to emanate in my body. It just never ends. All right. Con I shall sight. So that moss agate, it definitely brought up, it brought up a lot of the ick energy. So now we're gonna coat our home with the Yoda balls. Con I shall sight. You'll see it. And it's got a cobra acid tendency, but it's a cobra acid towards getting rid of denial patterns or lies. Or evil. Griffins are crime hunters. And that's what a griffin is they're sniffing out evil and then getting ready to expose it to the light. And they'll expose the evil in themselves to transmute themselves more into a griffin and it never ends. So this is really to purify the buried DNA within your psyche. And uncover the lies, but really burn them out. Then we're gonna do the city yolk. And at that point, it looks like the scrubbing bubbles. This and highlight opal look like the scrubbing bubbles in Lord of the Rings. Wipes through an entire city and then cleans it out. Make sure you get beneath the city. And then we're going to do the Hufflepuff yolk. And making sure the lower world of the Hufflepuff yolk worlds are getting thoroughly filled in. And then we're going to go ahead and do the world shell. Coat that around the planet. You might start feeling a sense of liberty and freedom that cuts cords. Making sure it goes all the way to the bottom of the clippeth. On both sides of the world. So what I like to do is see the North Pole, the South Pole, the home tower, and the antipodal point kind of glowing in this crystal or fully covered. And that's how I know that it's getting all the way through in the lower worlds. Because I imagine all of those. And then maybe if I can see it where they cross at the crux, that's how I know it's getting through. I'm hearing that's where the magic happens. Another person is saying, this is how we cleaned out the clippeth, you guys. Yes, it is one of the ways we cleaned out the clippeth. Absolutely. The other way was the Gryffindor lasagna. And a lot of the work Hades did. Just, I would wake up one day and 50% of the clippeth was claimed and filled in with the lasagna, and that was Hades. Like, it was Jesus. Hades has more work to do, but and then the sky, and then through the different other worlds. And then just got Griffin, just Gryffindor on the planet. Cat. Fire agate. Now this really starts to burn and purify. To let that fall down and eat away at the ick energy in your body, in the tower. This has a more fiery energy than the con I shall say energy, the Yoda ball. This is actually more like cobra acid, or you'll feel the fire burn. And eat away at calcified, blocked chi. And then you're gonna put it through the city. You're gonna hear the city Yolk needed it, legit. Whereas your home is probably very clean. Other people's homes are not, they're not clean. And you're gonna walk down just next door and you're gonna find litter all over the street, and most people think that's an acceptable way to live. They're so out of their bodies. And they take care of their kids and their pets at the same level. So I'm hearing the question, if you had your kids, how would it be? Okay. So I would have like 8 of them. That would be impossible to deal with. But I would have whatever job I needed. I would be at probably a graphic design company. I've lived, I'd probably be working at Fender or a company where I could actually have a decent salary and pay for their education. And then at night, I would be doing this work about an hour to 2 hours a night. And then I would and I would probably work out at lunch. So it's doable. I know there's a way to live. It's like I wouldn't be able to teach Kabbalah. I wouldn't be able to teach it. if I had children with me, because I'd have to be financing everything. But I am able, because I am not fully responsible for my children, to teach this Kabbalah class, get everything up and running, to get Sora up and running. And then we can evolve as a society in the future. Hmm. Okay, that got through the video just fine. And yes, I am very judgmental about the tech industry and forward progressive millennial movements, but that's because they grasp to those ideologies instead of any kind of real human spiritual development work where they ascend. And then they do things like have children and then make excuses for their behavior because they have children. So it's like a recursive cycle where they continue to enable their own choices of laziness. And those individuals are usually indigos or lower on the spectrum, and they don't quite enter Tiferet, and so they'll be phased out of the future. And the Adam Cadmans begin at Tiferet and higher. So those will be the Adam Cadmans really will be the A&R marked individuals, but that's what happens during a spiritual revolution where we're going to be creating an entire new species of human. And that's life. It won't be like Gattaca. It will be more, I meditated for 5,000 hours. And so my DNA evolved. Okay. The fire agate through the Hufflepuff yolk. That third layer of the fire agate on the Hufflepuff yolk is doing a very good job cleaning out old Slytherin. We needed that. We'll clear out bi-coastal attacks. And old chords. Make sure through the Hufflepuff yolk, it's going through the bottom. And then we're going to do the world shell. Feels like it's going through the bottom of the Hufflepuff yolk. And then we got the world shell, the upper layers, and then fill it in at the 4 posts all the way to the center. Hit the crux. And then you're going to start seeing a huge transformation of spiritual depth in the oxygen and the air. Because when we hit Geburah, that's when the spiritual journey actually begins. Because you finally are clearing out like your evil. So where we think of like, that's the end of my entire existence, it's actually just a minute fraction of your real spiritual path. You're like, I'm finally marked. Like I'm no longer a demon. I have been seraphed in life. It's actually kind of a more exciting vibration because you realize everything is an adventure now. And there's potential for new because you're not trapped in Hode Muggle where there's this cycle. This is life. This is how life is. Life is a box and it's only this and that's the matrix and I'm controlled by it. Instead, it's like, I can create a new reality. And there are no more rules. I mean, there are rules. There are human ethics rules, but they're not like societal games and he said, she said, or All that disgusting junk. And making sure that the fire agate is all the way through the crux on the planet. And then what I like to do when I see it go through the crux is I see at least 3 rings around the crux that are filled. And then I know it will expand. All right. We're going to choose another version of the rutilated quartz. I'm going to choose this one. I don't want to use the same crystals that we had last time as our focal point. So this one is for the world of not. So it's, again, this one's our pattern breaking. Not this, not that, not that, not that. So this is a nice smooth crystal that is kind of yoni stone-esque. There are no sharp edges. So we're breaking the patterns of sharp edges. That's why we also had the focal point of the spear. Red rutilated quartz. For me, this is kind of a brick building crystal also. If it brings up a little bit of the knife rape, that's okay. We'll purify it in the next couple crystals. It does still have a spiky energy, but it is a pattern breaker. But it might be starting to bring up any repressed knife rape that's still in your astral fields or lower selves. The whole planet, you have to understand, the whole planet was filled with it. So, like, if you just go out in nature and you're not covered appropriately, you're gonna get torn just by thorns. So you guys have to know that and remember how awful the planet was or is. I don't want to say is. I want to say was. And then you just like a 1/3 of women on the planet are sexually assaulted. So just so we understand that. So, so just Like that's why Griffins, like it's the red light district, and we're weeding out sex crimes. Like that's our main A&R focus. Okay. Next, that reaches people of every race and religion around the globe for infinity. And it transcends female gender. It works for trans, gay, and middle sex individuals, all sex crimes, and children. So now, around the city Yolk, so I'm getting a psychic registration or a download. There are about 100 sex crimes that are committed a day in the city. 100. I'm in London. I'm in Hackney in London. That's bad. That's bad. A 100 a day. Okay. That city Yolk is doing good. And then we do the Hufflepuff Yolk. Go through the top. And then the ocean. Let that come through. And what you're going to start to feel are those little shards of light in the rutilation of that quartz. Like they're almost stepping stones for you to be able to ascend onto in the lower planes through the astral world. So it offers an ascendable stepping path or ladder for your DNA to climb. And then we're going to let that sink all the way to the bottom, and you should get it through the tail, your tailbone. And you should feel it through your feet. And then we're going to do it the world shell. And then somebody says, this will help the Hufflepuff Ascendables get into Gryffindor. Yes. Or the Hoshmalim. So we call Griffins, we call them Griffins. And then we'll also refer to the Ravenclaws as Ravens. But the Ravens always have like a very weird, that feels very odd because they're not really like a raven. Ravenclaw is raven. It's it's the claw of the raven because the raven is much more like Dina. We call them bluebirds, and because it's really cute to call a kid a bluebird instead of a Ravenclaw. And that's what Lucifer reminded me that we called them because they vibe at that blue frequency and they have the wing energy. And that's so Kelly's a raven. She's an auror. She's also a bluebird. That's a difference between a boundary dragon, which is a griffin, and the smart bluebirds that will come together and then chit chatter and then do all the weird mental wiring of reality. All right, get the rutilated quartz through the different towers. In the lower worlds. Through the bottom. And then get the 3 rings at the crux. Get the crux and then get the 3 rings filled in. And then it's easier to pour the rest of the yolk through. And you might feel some psychic karma, or people who would normally be a little distant but still kind of friendly, but frenemy friendly. They might start breaking their patterns of being a dick to you. And I'm starting to feel an actual sense of security about being on this planet now. Now, with this rutilated quartz, man, that's small. God. Rhodolite garnet. We're gonna fill this in and then I'm gonna take a break. But let's find the rhodolite. This one looks like a brick. I don't want the star because that one feels knife rapery. I'm gonna go with the teardrop. Or that brick. We're gonna go with this brick. And then we can see the teardrop. There's something very odd about this one because it looks like there's a vagina in the middle of it. It's a giant vagina slit. So we're gonna as a road of light for the vagina. Trying to see if there are any more appropriate ones. That one does not look as good. That looks gross. That one's a little more appropriate. I really wanted the emerald cut without it looking like vagina slit. Maybe if I Googled it. That's the same one. We're not doing very well here. We're gonna do the vagina slit. That one keeps popping up for a reason. Unless we can do this. That one's nice, but that one also has like a vagina slit. None of them look good. The emerald cut is pretty, they're all the same almost. Unless we can focus on that. Yeah. They all have it. So there's probably a teaching here that's trying to come through. No, all of it is brick building to protect. Put that on the home. What world was this for? P Christ, Christ, Christ. So that's punished Christ, Christ, Christ. Like you've already been punished. Like this is just Christ energy. That and then we do it on the city yoke. What you're gonna find is people responding to this as in we're not that bad in no man's land. um, Being overly positive is a psychosis. When you're real about the actual issues on the planet, there is nothing. A spiritual master doesn't look at reality and go, ew, that's negative. They go, that's my job. And they look at the story of Jesus being sacrificed like a piece of meat and they go, that's me. I need to prepare for that. Or they look at MLK Jr. being assassinated or Gandhi being assassinated. Historically, Robert Kennedy assassinated JFK. Okay, so like historically, Nelson Mandela imprisoned. All right, so any actual progressive leader in the history of history has gone through excruciating turmoil on this planet. And they come to the terms of the reality of the scenario. Everything's just fine and wonderful. No way. The Dalai Lama still can't even inhabit his own homeland. Everything's light and love and God. As much as I'm angry at the Dalai Lama, like he still is entitled to live in his homeland. And I just don't want to call him God or his holiness. Like he's somehow holier than I am. That's completely abusive and inappropriate. That's a Slytherin. City Yolk. Hufflepuff Yolk. Pour that on through. This should start cutting down a lot of the snake brain of others, where you feel the cords. Where they go, we're just fearful people that have no problem attacking anybody with all of our brains or thought or energy. So do you understand how Slytherins are demons? Because they may give the excuse that they don't have the divinity or the courage to do anything because they're just scared. But then they're completely entitled to be 100% sloppy with literally every aspect of their life at all costs to everyone else. Where Griffin goes, I'm going to learn how to stop swearing. I'm going to clean up my energy. I'm going to start holding myself in a more contained, postured manner. I'm going to be very mindful with my word. And it will be one layer of self-development, another layer of self-development, another layer, another layer. And over the course of 30 to 50 years, they become transcendent. And then we're going to go on to the world shell, rhodolite garnet. And I'm hearing, God, did we need that around the globe? You're going to see it falling through the 4 towers. And then entering the crux. You have the 1 ring and the 2 rings. And the 3 rings. Part of the reason I'm so informal with all of you is that this is our process class to really begin to just, this is our workout. We're in workout gear. We're very sloppy. We're beginning to develop muscles. And as we progress over the next decade, then we'll start looking more masterful, more on point. But this is the part where we are purifying the reptile out of us. Really stepping into cleanliness and learning basics of thought behavioral pattern. Basics. Okay. Feeling good, part of my root chakra. Feeling nice. We're going to make sure that this rhodolite gets through all the way. So there's a component of this crystal where it's a slit vagina. So the FGM is still very prevalent and abundant on the planet and needs to be cleaned out. So it's a constant reminder that this is our road of light. Okay. All the way through. Up. And here we have the red garnet. And this one has no slit. This one's a brick. Let's see if we can have another one. Again, one without a slit down the middle. So this is our pattern. So this is our protection crystal. There's kind of a foldy slit there, not a slit here, or there is a fraction. So there is a difference between this garnet and the rhodolite garnet on our patterns. Here we don't have the slit down the center. So that's the teaching. So let's review and do the regular garnet all over again. Brick, 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 brick. So there's a component here. The first layer of brick still leads to knife, right? I can't. The second layer and we're starting to be okay. and that's why Charlie keeps going brick, 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 brick every day. All right, that's the teaching. Deal with it. That's a good teaching, actually. There was a great teaching in the Geburah egg for the grid. It was collecting one brick wall after the next. And God made me do, like, I got to 91 and like page 92, like the next brick wall had a pile of shit next to it. And it was a really or it was 99, still had a pile of shit next to it. And it was a really firm teaching. You have to do the full 100. Zero cheat, zero shortcut, 100%, 100 brick walls. When I draw those eggs, it's a magical process of what I put into each egg and how I grid them. So you only see the red candy apple and not all the 500 things we put into them, including all the slates and all the brick walls. And then the layers and layers and layers. So this, coming through the home quite nicely, and then gets through the bottom. And then we have the city yolk. And then we have the bottom of the city yolk. And then we have the Hufflepuff yolk. And the bottom of the Hufflepuff yolk. Make sure that comes through nicely. And then we're going to go through the world shell. I can feel that Tara, she feels funny. So we have the good world shell. And then we get the towers and we let the yolk drip down the towers into the crux. And then we have the 3 rings around the crux. And then we pour on the rest of that yolk. And you'll feel it through your feet. You'll feel a sense of stability and security, and maybe a sense of power. You can go, Netflix is closed to somebody who wants to be a Slytherin. And then you can have that ability. You're going to be a Hufflepuff, or else. There's a deeper love and empowerment that comes through that. Now, power is an ability. You can feel it vibing through your feet. So confidence comes from the solar plexus, and that's just like, that's down here. and we're operating here, which is, it's our natural position creates confidence, not the other way around. We did have to begin at Netzach and then go up, though. We had to go through the heart chakra now into the throat chakra-ish area. All right, I'm going to take a break. This is a good time to pause if you want, and then I'm going to come back. Okay, so we're coming to terms with this garnet, and we're starting to actually fill in the voids that are left in the crevices of the planet, and the constant emanation that it is creating is Netzach is closed. So that when somebody wants to attack you or stab you in the astral planes, it shuts them down. Instead of trigger, like where they were before being triggered and released, it's now starting to build the energetic system where they don't have the power to do that anymore. Netzach is closed. Mother Earth doesn't want a bunch of angry people releasing out psychic attack and stabs every minute of every day, especially on the people that are actually going to be doing all the work on Mother Earth, because those people aren't going to be doing it. They attach to Netzach because there's a sense of, oh, Netzach is my natural self. So they do all the fairy work to get out of Hode. And then they sit in Netzach and they go, this is just myself. I don't need to do anything else. Where a natural ascent process would be get out of Hode, Netzach is the self, and then you go, well, this is boring. I need to go into Hufflepuff or higher, because that's where the real work is, and that's where the ascent begins. Netzach is a rot pit stop to prevent reavers, instead of a place for everybody to get what they want all day long. I'm just gonna draw all day. I'm not gonna do anything fantastic. I'm just gonna look at the beauty of what I draw and indulge in it and make some money. That's Netzach. Now that can transfer into Hufflepuff, but they need to graduate selflessness and real beauty, bell level beauty, inner beauty, for that to fully transform. Now there may be components in somebody's soul, but again, there's a difference between a Hufflepuff and like an old soul that just wants to sit and jerk off and nutsack. Okay. So I'm really wondering if I'm on the share screen. I'm not, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so here is red amylate. And this is what we brought before. So all the ammo that they have against you, light it up. There's a energetic red about the pair energy coming through. So like this amylite or those amylite. So there's a sequencing. So it might be about your twin or your just a best friend who's like a mate or partner. I'm gonna see if there's anything else that's coming through. So the pear and the teardrop. People using your mate or your friends against you. I'm gonna choose the actual pear energy. I know it's really unnerving that I go through the whole list. Another set. We're gonna go to the pear that's on Etsy. The only problem is it doesn't show up on this screen, Google Images. So we're gonna go ahead on this pear. That's our focal point. We're gonna go ahead and layer that amylite. That has a sense of brick. And boy, does this burn. Should feel like a windswept fire coming through. Dragon fire is usually contained and more centered with a sense of magical spell added to it. Whereas this fire is wild. This is actually the appropriate time to start sharing this story. Today I was at brunch with Simon. He was asking me about Griffins versus Slytherins and where they are on the tree. And it was brought up about Zuko. Was Zuko a Griffin? So there were a couple stories that came through. So Iroh was a Griffin, even if he belonged to the Fire Nation. The Fire Nation was mostly Slytherins and Nutsock. And Iroh passed the Geburah, Hesed blue and red dragon pair. and was a griffin. So he would hunt down evil. But he was an unmarked griffin because he was in a Nazi regime overlord state. So that his way of marking a griffin was the white lotus pebble or Paisho. Zuko was a Slytherin and then had to undergo the actual Hufflepuff cook. And that's where he lost all his power and then had to regain it again in a new fashion or a new sense of enlightenment, because that's where you cook your Kundalini energy from the solar plexus up into through the heart into the higher planes. So eventually, as Zuko aged, he became a griffin. But he started off with his energy very slim and it all being about self power, anger. My power comes from my rage, not like my power comes from my rage and self-defense. So there's a difference. Iroh, on the other hand, is an enlightened guru, and he already had that sense of grounded calmness that you would get through a Hufflepuff cook. So it was centered, wise, stable, calm, and that transmutes into a griffin as it ascends the tree. And so that's how you know that Zuko passed the red and blue dragons and was not cooked. He was enlightened across the abyss, basically. Now we're going to do the city oak. So a griffin in an overlord Slytherin state they're very secretive. They can't be public or announcing it to the world. And they will play the Omega card all day long. It's something that I would attune to a Slytherin boss and take their shit all day long and see every 500 million things that they did that were evil, cheating, plagiarism, shortcuts, flaws. And they're so narcissistic. They have zero self-awareness that you're even there watching it. So that was Star, but there are 100 other bosses that are like that. In many tribes or cultural groups, like the Slytherins would sit there, if they were cunning, they would know you're playing dumb, or they would call it playing dumb, because you're putting on a facade so you can survive. Okay, so we have this city oak. I was also asked. So we're going to do the lower world right now with the city Yolk, the lower Yolk. Then we're going to go ahead and do the Hufflepuff Yolk. So I was asked today, if I knew star seeds, if I'd ever met a star seed, and I am a star seed. So I'll go from planet to planet because I'm still the Archangel Kamael, or I will carry that archetype wherever I go. And every planet has a different paradigm that needs to be shifted. That's what a starseed does, is that they take on huge projects and then they send you that planet. But I am inherently a Slytherin hunter, because a Slytherin is not a divine person, and they'll do really awful things for power. And Archangel Kamael is the Archangel of war against Slytherins. Okay, so just so you understand that. Right now we're barely getting magic on the planet, so that's another war to develop. The war of getting magic on the planet. Okay. Now we go the lower worlds of that Hufflepuff. Whoa, burns out fear and disapproval. I don't want to do magic. Okay, so you don't want to do magic? Then master your brain and your entire virtue system and your entire cellular structure, and then make that your magic. So see, it's still about self-mastery. Most of my day is writing pages. So like, that's my magic. That's like saying I don't want to be a ballerina, but I want to take ballet bar classes. Same thing. I'll do all the conditioning work, and that feels good, and that's my workout. That's a healthy lifestyle and something to be proud of, actually. Now we're going to do the world shell. And then we're going to do the 4 towers. then we're going to get that crux. Ring 1, ring 2, ring 3, so I'm hearing the question, was Khaleesi a griffin? Absolutely. Most people don't understand. She was not a snake at all. She gave 100% warning and she followed through. She never did anything super corrupt, ever. She was betrayed, she was raped, she was hunted, and she defended herself. And she was put against a corner where dragons were murdered, and she was continuously shunned. And then when push comes to shove, she burns down a city that she gave forewarning about. So she did nothing out of integrity. It sucks. It's real dark. And not one person left that city. Not one. So a snake. So dragons don't trust snake people unless they're griffins. So that's the problem. Most people don't even know what a griffin is. So a snake person will go, I'm gonna have you tortured to death, but I'm gonna put on a facade and hide it. And a griffins don't believe in crimes like that. The worst they're gonna do is dragon fire. I'm gonna have you kidnapped and tortured to death. Khaleesi doesn't do that. Like, burn that down. Like, so making sure that is finally burned through the center. All right. Red, how light? Now, the image we had before was the palms, or the palm stone. How do we do it? With our own bare hands. That's how. We'll focus on the brain this time. And we'll remember the palm stones. And we'll also be very recognizing the egg popping through, the dragon egg. Red howlite coming through the temple, home. So telling a griffin that you think that torturing somebody is less of a crime than killing them, it just pisses off a griffin. Torture is okay. So you guys, there are people have serious issues, so that's an excuse to torture. Death, fine. Torture is like psycho. Death reincarnates. It's a freedom or a release. Torture, so that's a Slytherin thing. That's cruel and unusual. Now let's go back. Yeah, it's totally fine if we torture Khaleesi since she wants to dragon fire, the quickest, cleanest death in existence. Zero torture. Pure, like instant death. So pure, it cleans the body of the soul through Geburah. Clean death. Torture versus cleanest death, that's divine God. We don't get that. We don't get that dragon fire is the cleanest death. Then you don't belong in an ascension. It's that then you're just a reptile. You know how many times that I've died by dragon fire? Planet after planet, incarnation after incarnation. Unbelievable. That's nothing. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's nothing. That's not fear mongering. That's like I surrender to the dragon that's about to char me to death. And now I'm just gonna go into escape mode in my meditation and just be charred. Nothing. All right. Versus days and days of sexual assault, stabbing. Okay, so like there's just nothing there. Okay, so that's psychosis. That's going to be wiped off the planet. That's reptile. How light? Okay, city yolk. A Hufflepuff has to already cross the death path. So they already know what it takes just to get into Hufflepuff. They have to face death like 50 times before they can even ascendio. And then they have to surrender to the light of God a million million different ways. And then when you hit Geburah, it's a whole other ball game. Like, drink from a poison cup just to begin the initiation. Geburah. This is how I know I'm running Geburah, is if I can survive the poison. That's how I know I'm running red light through my body. Instead of living a hoed muggle existence. How light? I don't endorse it. That's my job. It's really hard to run the energies of the House of White and Black if you're not like practicing it in reality. That guy, the faceless man, that's Hermes. So everyone knows. That's that man, that's the real hero of the story. It's shocking how much everybody overlooks the actual heroes, the actual ones in all of these giant mythology heroes journey tales. So the faceless man, that he was the star. Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is the star. In Harry Potter, Hermione is the star. Okay, so like we bypass it for mediocrity to focus on somebody else that has very very small actual discipline, talent. Or what about in the Legend of the Seeker, and you have the mother confessor who probably spent 30 years to just train to develop all of her talents and abilities. She's the real gift. But then you like the seeker is the important one. Die. Just die. It's you gotta really understand. like I'm not the important one to the dragons. I am in a loving way, but like the dragons are themselves. Like Drogon's more important than Khaleesi, but Khaleesi's Drogon's love. It's like being a parent and doing 500 times more work than your child, but your child's the light of your life. And so you'll just make them the star. And there isn't an ounce of like regret or hesitation. And we're talking about how light right now, and this is probably the teaching is like how do you create the light? Is find that one person, you'll make the star. And there's not an ounce of ingratitude around it. It's just love. Is how Dumbledore treated Harry. Like, you're so much more important than I am. Like, says who? Like, the book, Harry's egotistical brain. Oh my god. Voldemort? Says who? It's coming through the city yolk. Nice. And then the Hufflepuff yolk. I definitely treat my nieces like that. Ew. All right, that Hufflepuff yolk one's coming through. And then we make sure that it goes into the bottom of the Hufflepuff yolk. That's definitely a way to bypass Voldemortism. It's like, you think Voldemort ever did that with anyone ever? So that's how to get out of any kind of icky. I'll say this on my page, during my hunger strike, on my About Me page, I used to have this picture of the four dragons. It was like Charlie, Moira, Ren, and Shaw. Okay. And then it was like me on the nose of Ren. And it's a little speck. a little light speck. And it's a completely endearing perspective of reality. Here you are, this little bug, this little butterfly on the nose of one of the dragons, and then there are four of them just looking at you. And it's a very humbling concept that you're like the little light for them. And that's why Charlie and Lucy like me, by the way. So I take them out of their dark. And a lot of the other dragons too. All right. Then we got the world shell. Somebody's saying it. It's like looking at the little bird that sits on the back of a rhino. That's exactly what it is. I kind of like the teaching, like little people matter. That's the teaching coming through. Because if you see it next to the coin, these heads are very small. And it reminds us that our gnomes matter too. Because they're the same. Like they do something funny or cute, and then it changes our entire demeanor. We go, oh. Okay, on the four towers in the world shell. I think everybody kind of likes story time. Stories are important. Half the teachings that really change your life come through the stories or the parallels in your own existence. And it gives you these intersection points for your brain to wrap the teachings into your body and into your life. Helps you integrate. And we have the 3 rings around the crux. And then we fill up the rest of the yolk in the world shell. This red howlite. This is a good Gandalf teaching. That power is not always just a giant dragon. Or power, but the little things we do every day. Little acts of kindness. Or the little no me's that we have, the little things we don't do every day. Like, I don't condemn my nieces, or I don't do this, or I don't badger people on that, or I don't stab them, or I try not to. What we don't do in life is just as important as what we do. It's the how. How do we get to point B? Oh, here are 500 behavior characteristics to not do. A lot of them are just. One thing I never cared about or was upset about was Star's actual Khaleesi energy, where she dragon fires truth at somebody. That I never minded. So I don't filter that in myself. I might filter it a little bit, but there was so much other stuff. Jordan Bain used to talk about how the Mayan lineage would run energy. It was so harsh. And he would have to write all these different extra grids to do the divine intervention frequencies to heal people of cancer, just to take away from the severity or harshness of the vibrations. And that lesson or that teaching never left me, because I could feel the difference between a healing session with Jordan and then the Mayan lineage. Like, all right, red barrel. So we're gonna keep with the salviohexia tower shape. Maybe we'll choose a different one. But here is this cool component that it's the crux. So you've got the up, down, and then you have the home tower and then antipodal point on the salviohexia. The salviohexia red barrel crux. It's already formatted or formulaic to create ascendio and take away from bad curses from others and bad icky energy. Now, this helps even with the home tower, because you can imagine it spiking out through the home and then to even maybe four other, or four towers. This red barrel feels very, it does not feel knife rapery. It feels very good going on. Usually very smooth. And it should start to go down your spine and your tailbone because you want it to purify your snake tail. Your dragon tail. I think a griffin actually has the tail of a snake sometimes. There's a reason. They have to transform. So they have the head of an eagle. Generically, they have a head of an eagle, the body with the wings, and then the body of a lion. So that the body of the lion's the Hufflepuff component. And the bird is the flying elevation into above the wheel. And then it might have the serpent tail. And that's the Netzach that's still running. And then it should be setting itself on fire. A real griffin would be constantly setting itself on fire. Burn this, burn that, burn this. Okay. And yes, the seraphim are the serpents of fire or on fire. No. Fiery serpents. Dragons. All right. So now we go with the city Yolk. Now it starts to come on really nicely. And let that fold into the underbelly. And with every layer, you're purifying your own grid as much as possible. And then the Hufflepuff yolk. And then let that fold in. All through the lower. Now the world shell. We're going to start to pick up the pace a little bit, but not too much. So I'm starting to feel a lot more of the energy popping out of me, old air bubbles. That feels good. And then make sure that the red barrel goes through the 4 towers and then gets to the central crux and then layers on that yolk. 3 circles. Now we're starting to feel a little bit more Elwoodsy instead of Kali Ma at war against knife rapers. So we start feeling a little bit more secure on the planet. And this doesn't detract from like all the current sex crimes on the planet, but it does make us feel a lot more empowered in our own position through everything. So we can be maybe an inch more elevated so that we can take care of people. And not drowning in self-centered victim juice. That's some that's something somebody just said. That's true. Not drowning in self-centered victim juice. Oh my god. You have to have a red octopus totem to understand like you could give literally everything in, in your existence and still be called a victim because you're still drowning. It's so bad. It's so bad. Oh my god. No, not pause share. There we go. All right, the next layer is red jasper. This gives us a lot more solid energy. Let's go here. I still love, I have the love, the heart. Heart still coming through. If this one fills up nice and fast, it's a quick fill. It kind of vibes like Sedona. Or terracotta. Clean earth energy. It's not perfect. It's nice. Nice upgrade. And then we go through the city oak. Nobody has this grid in the city. Oh no. Let's drown them in red jasper. Wipe away their Slytherin mind control patterns. I'm gonna give you guys a surprise at the end. There was a teaching about red tiger eye. I don't want you to run red tiger eye right now, but making sure the red jasper goes through the city yolk, the bottom, underbelly. And now we do, oh, this is feeling good on my third eye. Now we're gonna do the Hufflepuff yolk. Let it sink to the bottom and fill it all the way up to the top. And then we're gonna do the world shell. Man, do we need to get God's help on this one. Okay. Smudge it on like it's cake paste or cake frosting. Quickly and easily drown people in it. Most people are like, we don't want to do anything in life. That's where they're at, emotionally and mentally and spiritually. Die. Oh no. That's why the planet looks like a shit show or a shit storm. All right. And then fill it in underneath. Get the 4 towers. Somebody saying that's why the mystery school Kabbalah class is way more popular because they don't have to do anything. And that's what they get. Now it's layering all the way through the globe. I don't like comparing myself to the mystery school because then I lower my standards because I realize how low their standards are. I like going, what do I want to do? What is required to produce the result that I want? The results that I want is a clean planet, an eighth house nexus system, enlightened students, people that are going to be A&R marked. I want people to be able to produce Patronus charms, not look at a wall and do a ritual 5 minutes a day. Although that is important, that 5-minute ritual is important for training the will and the brain and the energy field, but okay, we're doing pretty good on that in the world. So here we are with red sapphire. So red sapphire has this kind of pinkish corally shell to it also. It's not red, it's reddy orange. I also like the teaching with the red sapphire nail polish. And it's safe from fire. So this is how Daenerys doesn't burn. That That's a result I would like to get to in life. I know I don't talk about the whales very much, but that's the other result that we want to be able to get through, is that we have the power to just go free whales if we want to and get them to Ingrid or Paul, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that we know that we can just do a rescue operation, steamroll SeaWorld, and then get done what we want done without having to cut down 5 billion trees to do bureaucratic paperwork on the planet and then spend $500 million just to pass one piece of legislation. So that's demonic muggle programming. You think about Hermione and Harry having to go rescue the hippogriff. That attacked Draco Malfoy, and the amount of drama surrounding it is insanity. Okay, now we're gonna do the city yolk. Red sapphire. Could you imagine just being able to go up to SeaWorld and get the whales rescued or the dolphins thrown into a sanctuary tank just by like what you would say or do? What if you could do an alpha program, Jedi mind trick on them? Anything. It doesn't have to be psycho blast dragon fire, okay? The where there's a witch, there's a way. That's the point. So that's why it's the red nail polish. It can just be the feminine. The city oak is starting to get it. Now we're going to make sure the underbelly is getting it. And then we go ahead and then we start the Hufflepuff Yolk Temple. And I love this one because it reminds me of the white girl that was kind of a gold digger in The Princess and the Frog that was friends with Tiana. And how Southern Belle she was. So there's an essence to that. Man. I'm putting on a character persona. To get done what you want to get done. First, you got to get something done. And then you got to know what you want to get done. Yeah. You've got to know what you want to get done. Okay. Hufflepuff Yolk is feeling good. Now we're going to do the world shell. I also like this image because she looks like Ninja Monk. There are two, there are two, and both of these are very good archetypes. Both of them are like no nonsense people. If you buy into the fact that this woman is a stupid person, then you're gonna get swindled in life. Like like to me, this is Nina Hester. Nobody knows that. There's a cunning with women, certain women, where it doesn't actually, it's not evil, where they're getting something done, but there's a poise and a posture to do it. Nina Hester was my best friend in high school. She could manipulate anyone. She also had the biggest heart. So it worked both ways. She would be like a Slytherin, but that wasn't abusive. So she turns into a Hufflepuff very easy. So we have Spinal. We're gonna go back to the red sapphire in just a second. Okay, get that through the towers and through the crux and the circles in the middle of the world. I would absolutely call Nina a gold digger, but never in an irreverent or disrespectful way. Ever. Because she's like this woman. That's very challenging in life. No, almost zero people could ever get away with it. Sixth house, sixth house Buffy's, so they would be able to. Not Sith. So people who've historically gone from planet to planet and would gold dig to create griffins. That. So it would be something in their the emanation of their being and how they would posture and present themselves. So even if, let's say, Nina and I were on a planet and it was a Slytherin planet or a full ministry planet, many times I would be a Griffin, but I'd be best friends with her and she'd be a Slytherin. And that would be kind of a unfavorable friendship, but not because we would still like, she loves. So that's a sixth house human. Okay, spinal. Spinel. So what? Both of them are the as above, so below teachings. This one and the other. We used this the last time, but I very much wanted to make it clear that it comes in both components. We'll focus on that. Oh, I'm hearing, please don't. We already remember that picture. Okay. Get it through the home tower. So you see a lot of this angry girl. She's got a spine. You see her here, and then you see her here and here. You don't look like you can walk all over her. She looks smart and shrewd. That's the energy that comes through. She can be very emotional. It's a really deep gift to have a spine. Make sure it goes through the lower worlds of your tower. So often we're bullied out of our dreams or our ambitions or our goals that are huge, huge parts of us. And it's really important that you're not jaded out of those paths and that you stand up for yourself. So I'll beat you guys to a pulp, but I don't want to steal your dreams. What I do want to do is tell you how much work it's going to take to get there. How much karma you have to clean out. And there's a difference between a soul dream and an ego dream. Okay, we're going to do around the city. I'll start teaching other people to have spines. Remember, your spine in your physical body is a direct reflection of your spine in your spiritual one. So, as above, so below. Somebody's saying right now, I don't have much of a spine with you because I don't want to do anything but love. That's fair. Then you might not have a spine with anyone in life. Do you see the paradoxical trap? Oh my God. Man. What? You don't want to do anything but love? No, you're gonna, that's just a facade. That's a trap. Man, you don't want to discipline or educate. Set boundaries. Be able to say no. Our city oak is starting to get good. We need the underbelly. It's hard to get the spine and the roots. Why is it hard to get the spine and the roots? Spinel. I mean, that's what this shape is for, is that it should be able to go into the roots. All right. So now we need to do the Hufflepuff yolk. See if you can fill up the bottom first. And then the top goes. Yeah, that one's nicer. And then we go the world shell. That one got done fast. The world shell. Get the towers. And get the crux. And 3 rings. And then fill it in. Ugh. Or start outgassing. It just never ends. No. Patchy tear. Okay, we're all at the halfway point. After this, we're gonna close out the video. Then I'm gonna add another Crystal Yolk Temple 2. This is a palette cleanser. Emotional body cleanser. This is the lower mantle, right underneath the world of Asaya. Again, it's that secret pocket component where you might hide either money or prayers or intentions underneath your house. Everybody has that. It's in the floorboards. Secret components of your reality. You know, we fill it. Also where people can hide magic against you. So let me clean that out. But a lot of it is buried secret treasures. That we have a deep emotional connection to. Okay, we're gonna do the city yolk. Now you're gonna see people freak out. They're not used to this energy. Most people don't understand what emotions are. They don't even know that they're allowed to cry. Okay. Now we're gonna do it on. On the Hufflepuff yolk, quickly, gently. And on the lower worlds. And then we're gonna do the world shell. There we go. And the 4 towers. The crux, the circles, 3 circles, and then the yolk. What I like to do is imagine the yolk dripping over the first circle, and then the second circle, and the third circle, and then it fills up the whole middle of the world. Much like a pastry chef. Boom, boom, boom. Except it's the reverse. Okay. Here's the next palette cleanser. Garnet and Fire Opal. So this is for the A worlds. So this is the stuff we'll sit on our floor. So it's a Saya, but it's not a Saya. It's the world right underneath, the micro world right underneath. That's like on the surface of our floor. So a lot of time we'll put stuff underneath the bed or underneath a chest of drawers that are secret components of what we want to manifest in life. We'll put it at the foot of the bed. So it's good to have the Gryffindor energy. It's clean. It's garnet and fireable. We had it with these two hearts before. We have it one where it's two pairs that create a heart and then two hearts. Oh, look, it's the same. You could imagine it where it's the fire opal with the garnet in a grid, Gryffindor lava. That went on very easily at the home. Let's do the city oak. We're mastering this vibration. It goes on real fast when you do attune to the Gryffindor lasagna. Man. And then the Hufflepuff yolk. in the world shell. So that starts feeling really good around the world shell. We're going to put it in the tower, the 4 towers, and the crux. Then the 3 circles. I'm going to fill in the void. Sorry, you guys, I'm getting downloads. Some more psycho people. Psycho motives. Really brings down. Brings down the energy. It's a great reminder for this teaching. Why are you putting your faith or hope in other people when you're the light? And teardrop. They will puncture you. They will make you cry. They will do this. They will do that. And like, they're not light. So why are you putting any faith in that? Zero faith in them. I know I said I would pause this, but we're going to move forward a little bit. home tower. Fill that up. City Yolk. Make sure the underbelly of the underbelly of the City Oak gets cleaned up. That feels like a healthy Asaya. And then we're gonna go the Hufflepuff yolk. Excuse me. And then we're gonna go ahead and fill it all the way up to the top. And then we're gonna fill in the tower world shell. World shell first. I'm feeling some of the love from you guys. It's an air. And then we're gonna go through the tower, the towers, the four, in the lower worlds. And then the crux. The circles around. crux. And then fill the yolk all around the circles, through the circles. It says, this planet is your playground, Khaleesi. We want you to play. That's true. We got to do some real deep cleanup first. Man. Okay. Make sure that cleans up even more. Layer it. And maybe continue to meditate on that for the next 5 to 10 minutes. And run the energy for you to light. All right, Kali run out.